It is a case that has polarized the American public. When Neighborhood Watch foreman George Zimmerman shot dead an unarmed black teenager in a gated community in Florida 16 months ago, opinions split along racial lines. And as Zimmerman walked free from court last night, after being cleared of the murder of Trayvon Martin, it was apparent that the community tensions triggered by the case are unlikely to subside anytime soon. A jury of 6 women deliberated for 16 hours before delivering not guilty verdicts, which were swiftly condemned by civil rights activists. Our Washington correspondent, Matt Fry, joins me now. Matt.
Sarah, I think it's fair to say that much of America, even those people who supported the line of self-defense posited by Zimmerman and his lawyers, are stunned by this verdict. And even though the man has been declared not guilty, there are so many people in this country who don't think of him as innocent. And the controversy about race, about guns raised by this case will, of course, continue.
State of Florida versus George Zimmerman. Verdict: jury find George Zimmerman not guilty.
The moment which one part of America had been dreading and another quietly expecting. The Florida jury of 6 women agreed with George Zimmerman's lawyers. He had killed an unarmed black teenager out of self-defense. And under Florida law, that meant he was within his rights.
Mr. Zimmerman, you have no further business with the court. Okay.
Finally, a smile from Zimmerman, who gets back his phone, his freedom, and later even the gun with which he shot 17-year-old Trayvon Martin on his way home from buying sweets.
I am gratified by the jury's verdict, as happy as I am for George Zimmerman. I'm thrilled that this jury kept this tragedy from becoming a travesty.
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
For these protesters last night, it is the law that has become the travesty.
Trayvon got killed for no reason, you feel me? Zimmerman should have got found guilty on some type of charge, so the streets gonna get justice, I guess. You feel me? No justice, no peace.
Plenty of demonstrations in numerous cities, but the outrage never turned to rage, and the numbers were small considering how much this case had captivated the country. The death of Trayvon Martin had become an iconic story of crime, punishment and race in an America that had elected a black president but had still failed to eradicate racism. Early on, before Zimmerman had even been charged, the president himself made it personal.
But my main message is to the parents of Trayvon Martin. You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And, you know, I think they are right to expect that all of us as Americans are going to take this with the seriousness it deserves, and that we're going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
These they always get away.
Are you following them?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
The 911 recordings that became the strongest case against Zimmerman, a self-styled wannabe cop who got out of his car to hunt his prey.
All right, what is your number?
There's gunshots.
You just heard gunshots?
Yes.
But in court, all that mattered was reasonable doubt, and there was plenty of that. This police video showed Zimmerman explaining how he had to defend himself.
I just grabbed my firearm and I shot him.
This photograph showed his bloodied face, allegedly after a punch-up with Trayvon. This was enough to get Zimmerman acquitted. The jury followed the letter of the law. But what kind of state produces a law that exonerates lethal force against a minor when so many other options were still available? And the big question, of course, is what would have been the outcome of this case if the racial identities had been switched, if Zimmerman had been black and Trayvon Martin had been white, for instance. There are many Americans who believe that it would have been radically different. And on that point, let me remind you of the case of one Marissa Alexander, who last year, a black woman, last year was convicted of trying to kill her husband, was then sentenced to 20 years in jail for firing shots in his direction. He had abused her and her children. So this is something that will continue. The discussions will continue. And as we speak, there are more demonstrations gathering. This one that you may see the pictures of at Union Square in New York. What this case has done is highlight the fact that the whole issue of race, the vexed issue of race in this country, is far from resolved.